This is the Bates Bobcast, our weekly podcast where we take a look at the week that was in Bates athletics. My name is Aaron Morrison. This week, we return to our senior salutes for teams who saw their seasons erased by the COVID-19 pandemic. On this episode, we chat with the senior captains and the head coaches for the Bates Nordic and alpine skiing teams. That's coming up on the Bates Bobcast. The Bates Nordic skiing program is led by a trio of senior captains. Zoe McKinney, Tucker Pierce, and Carter Ros help head coach Becky Woods make sure everything runs smoothly. And with no carnival races this year, their abilities as leaders were tested in brand new ways. Just to get things started, Zoe, senior captain here for the women's team, tell us a little bit about how Bates first got on your radar back when you were in high school looking for colleges.
Well, actually, the first time I went to Bates, I was looking at colleges with my cousin, and I just really liked kind of the community that I saw when I was at Bates. And from there, I kind of reached out to Becky and James, and things just kind of went from there. From when I talked to people, everyone always just talked about like the people and just the community that they found when they were here.
Great. Tucker, you're a Mainer. You went to Maine Coast Waldorf School from New Gloucester. Tell me, so Bates right around the corner from you growing up. Did you always think you'd be coming to Bates, or how'd that process go for you there?
Well, it was certainly on my radar from an early age. My sister was also a Nordic Bobcat, and James, their assistant coach, ran a summer program for high school athletes, which I participated in and got to meet some of the athletes before I was even at Bates. And they were all wonderful people. Got a good introduction to Becky early on, and the community inspired me and definitely seemed like the right decision.
Great. So we've got Tucker from Maine, Zoe from New Hampshire, but Carter, you're from Idaho. So tell us about how you first got interested in coming to become a Bobcat.
Yeah, Bates wasn't really on my radar at all through high school until one of my high school teammates and one of my Bates teammates, Leo Lukens, made his way out here to ski. That's when I first sort of heard about Bates, and then an email from Becky came through my mailbox during my gap year, where I was just focusing on ski racing in the hopes of making a college team. But to be totally honest, my prospects weren't looking very good until I got that email. So I guess just to hear that Becky believed in me and that Becky wanted me on the team was, the main draw for me coming out here to Bates. I never got the chance to visit, kind of just showed up in August as a freshman, and turned out to be one of the best decisions of my life.
Awesome. Zoe, as one of the captains this year, what was that experience like for you, considering unfortunately there were no obviously carnivals this season, but you and Tucker and Carter were still leading the team?
Yeah, it was definitely challenging this year. I feel like because with all of the restrictions just on campus, it was also hard to gather as a team, like outside of practicing. But the three of us just kind of worked on getting captains practices together this fall and getting that going before we met with Becky and James. But we definitely had to navigate some different circumstances this year for sure, which was challenging.
Tucker, how do you see it from your perspective?
Well, it was definitely a difficult year because we were in the dark for a lot of the year as to whether we would be competing together as a team. And I think one of our biggest roles for us as captains was keeping a positive attitude and keeping everybody excited about ski training throughout the fall, because that's a really critical part of our training year. And I think the team was in a good place with that. And we were lucky to have such good-minded folk on the team. And even once the season kind of slipped between our fingers, people were able to kind of race on their own and make the best of the ski season. And for us as seniors, it was probably the greatest loss, but we were happy to see that people were excited about it and we're looking forward to next year already. So
And then Carter, you were a three-time captain. You were first a captain for the men's team as a sophomore. How did that experience go for you, being a captain so young and then continuing to be one throughout your time at Bates?
Yeah, I think, being a captain sophomore year was definitely a challenge, but, Becky put a lot of trust in me early on, and I hope that I was able to live up to that. But, we, as, a senior class, have always had such a strong connection. I mean, Tucker and Zoe are like two of my best friends, and along with all the other seniors in our grade, it's never really felt like I've had to, do much leading for, my classmates. It's everybody's kind of on the same page. So I think everybody made it pretty easy for me from the start. And while this year wasn't what we hoped it would be, I think for all of us seniors, we just wanted to leave a mark on the team and, get some good momentum for the team moving forward after we're gone. And I feel like we were able to do that and still accomplish some goals and make the most of our senior year.
Certainly. And then I love to do like most memorable, in your case, carnivals during your time as Bobcats. Zoe, looking back on your time on the team, what's maybe the most memorable carnival for you?
I've actually been thinking about this a lot recently, but I just remember the last carnival of our freshman year. We were all sitting at the Middlebury Inn, or not the Middlebury Inn, sorry, the Blueberry Hill Inn, and the seniors that year, Parker, Dylan, and Connor, they were all going around like sharing their memories and just like how much the team had meant to them. And I feel like that was just like a really special moment because we were all there as a team, and it was like the last race of the season, and these seniors who had left such a mark on the team and like for all of us, they were just sharing about their experiences, and it felt like a very special moment. It felt like we were entering something like a really special team, and that was just like a really awesome memory for me.
Terrific. And Tucker, how about for you, most memorable carnival?
That's a tough one because we didn't have any this year, and I was injured for a lot of them last year. But probably for me, it would have been the not a carnival, but the Chummy Cup that we raced against Bowdoin and Colby at, and we had that at Black Mountain last year, which was our home course, and we all had great energy going into it, and I was able to come back and race with the team for that one, and it really kind of reignited my passion for skiing after a tough season. So yeah, I enjoyed that and enjoyed seeing all my teammates accelerate and kind of move up and take my spot that year, and keep going with the fortitude that I'd left it with.
Yeah, that Chummy Broomhall Cup, just to follow up real quick on that, for those who don't know, what makes that such a special race?
Well, it's a race that we do against the colleges of Maine, and it generally inspires a more competitive kind of atmosphere because it's a smaller field, and it's against our closest rivals. So we generally have pretty ambitious attitude going into that race, and yeah, I'd say it's a highlight of the year every year. It falls usually right in the middle of the carnival season, and yeah, we've had a lot of fun with it the past few years. And I think we're tied or maybe one back off of Colby in terms of total wins, but so it's kind of a historic event as well as a landmark event each year.
Excellent. And then Carter, what's the most memorable carnival for you?
Yeah, I think the most memorable carnival for me would probably be the Bates Carnival last year, especially looking back on it as my last Bates Carnival. I think there's always something special about racing at Black Mountain and Rumford. So much history there and so much Bates skiing history there, that getting to race up there is always super special. And not only is it awesome to race at Black Mountain, but last year on the 20-kilometer classic race day, the men's team had a career day. James gave us great skis and everybody really skied their hearts out. And it was super cool to see the team sort of succeed in a way that we hadn't yet that season, and sort of like see the potential that we had going forward. So that's probably the one that I'll always hold closest to my heart.
Great. Zoe, tell me a little bit more about the coaching team of Becky Woods and James Upham and what makes them so special here at Bates. Obviously, Becky being the longest tenured current head coach here.
Yeah, they're both so awesome. James is always so good with just like, he's always there like helping us with technique, and he's always so good with waxing and just all of like the technical things. And so is Becky, and Becky's like always there as just like a motivating voice. Yeah, they're both just like such great supports, and I feel like I go and talk to them a lot just during the year, just when things are going on, or just stopping in to say hi. Yeah, I'm really gonna miss both of them next year so much.
Tucker, what's your perspective on the two coaches there for the Bobcats?
Yeah, I think they make a great combo. I mean, James brings a lot of professional waxing into it from his past into the mix, and always pretty confident when I get my pair of skis from him before a race that I'm gonna have at least be in the best place I can to do as best I can that race. And Becky is a good kind of role model and mental support leader. Brings like a lot of experience from being such a coach for so long, and is really just a very personable person outside of sort of our racing environment too, when we're just training, and balances understands our balance between school and skiing. So
Yeah, I was going to mention that, Carter. You touched on the coaches also, but that balance between school and skiing, I'm sure is a challenge, certainly, because you're away from campus a lot, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I think it helps that Becky has been through the exact same thing we have, as a Bates alum and as somebody who skied for the Bobcats in her time during college. She knows what it's like to, go through a finals week here, or to navigate midterms, or even for us seniors this year working on thesis. Like, she gets it. So when you're having those conversations with her about how I can't, make it to practice today because I have this big test, like, you don't need to provide reasoning. Like, she knows. And I think that understanding that you have the room to focus on your academics when you need to, and knowing that your coaches are in full support of you through all that makes the challenge a little bit easier, for sure.
Great. Well, any other thoughts from each of you on your time at Bates? Plans going forward, perhaps you'd like to share? Zoe, we can start with you.
Yeah, next year I'm actually going to stay in Maine, and I'm going to be teaching in like just outside of Noblesboro, Maine, actually with Tucker's sister, Sam Pierce, who also skied for the team as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Tucker, and what about your experience? Any other thoughts you want to share and what your plans are for the near future here?
Well, I don't have any plans going forward yet, but definitely trying to stick around Maine. It's close to my heart from here. Went to school here, and don't plan to leave here quite yet. Although I've had a great time being able to go visit my teammates like Carter out in Idaho, and see kind of there's other teammates, worlds in different areas of the country. So I think that's something valuable about the skiing alumni experience, is that you kind of have connections and friends all over the map. And yeah, that's something I'm gonna hold close to me for the foreseeable and probably far future.
Awesome. Carter, you get the last word. Any final thoughts you want to share, and also possible plans for the future? Yeah,
I mean, I think reflecting on my years at Bates, I'm never gonna be able to separate my time at Bates from my time on the ski team. The Bates skiing family tends to live on all the way past graduation, and I'm really excited to try to stay involved with the team and the alumni network going forward. For me personally, I don't have any concrete plans for next year, but I'm looking to stick around New England and maybe try my hand at some coaching. So I might be reaching out to Becky for some tips in the future.
There you go. Perfect. Zoe McKinney, Tucker Pierce, and Carter Ros, senior captains for the Bates Nordic program. Thank you so much for joining us on the Bobcast. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it.
Becky Woods, the longest tenured current head coach at Bates, joins the Bobcast to salute this year's senior class for Bates Nordic. Becky, just kind of give me an overview overall of the senior class coming back this year. Obviously, maybe had some hopes high. Unfortunately, couldn't get any carnivals in, but what kind of impact did these seniors overall leave on the program, in your opinion?
Ooh, well, it's a huge class. We have 7 total seniors, and for a team of around 20, that's a big number. So their impact was huge in all different ways, right? From leading the team as athletes and racers, right, and in training, to also leading the team really through this pandemic, which I think has been equally challenging. And I have, of course, found myself constantly surprised and proud of how they've handled themselves, and how they have led the team. When there were times that none of us really knew what to do, they seemed to have the pulse on what the team needed, and were able to bring them together. So it's really, I'm constantly in awe. And although they're not always, we're not perfect, they sometimes rise to that level sometimes, so it's pretty fun to be a part of it.
Excellent. We'll go through each of the seniors in alphabetical order, starting with the women's team. Eliza Blood from Queensbury, New York, all academic this year as a senior. Tell me a little about her development as a skier over her career.
Yeah, Eliza came in and, one of the things that stands out to me is her real determination. As a first year, she wasn't where she wanted to be. And that happens to a lot of people. It's a big jump from high school and even junior national skiing to the collegiate level and the D1 level. And she just put her head down and trained and sorted through, a lot of things, and really came back as, an impactful member of the team, focused on technique, focused on nutrition, focused on endurance, and changed the way she did things. So, it's been really impressive. One of her feats that she accomplished just kind of out of the blue, and she did it this year too. She was abroad her junior year. On her birthday, she, decided that she was just going to go run a marathon in the mountains. And, we all kind of went, what, you did that? And then this year, she did the same darn thing, so it's just, that's kind of who she is and what she's about. And she quietly just gets things done. So it was a pleasure to work with her.
Terrific. Zoe McKinney named a team captain this year, a 3-time NESCAC all academic selection. What made her team captain material, in your opinion? What made her such a strong leader?
Well, one of the things about Zoe that once you meet her, you recognize right away is that she's incredibly outgoing, and she's also someone who is really easy to talk with, and she also makes really thoughtful decisions, and I think because of those things, and certainly her dedication as an athlete as well, those were some of the qualities that allowed her to sort of take over in that leadership role. Again, we have a small team, and I think our captains tend to be, there's never a conflict in coaches and team in terms of who they want to lead. So, she just over the course of the last 4 years, listened and learned from everybody in front of her and just took it right over. It was seamless. She was great. And in terms of her abilities, again, she, I think all the seniors on the women's side, Eliza, Maya, and Zoe, all really focused on getting better. And Zoe really did that year after year after year, and so to come in and as a junior have a great season, and was hopeful for this year as well. They made summer decisions based on training, and, so really, really just a big impactful person on our team.
Great. Maya Seckinger from a very small town in Washington State, Winthrop, Washington, had an injury initially here, but had two really strong seasons in 2019, 2020, scoring a lot of points for the Bobcats, right?
She sure did. Yeah. Maya came in with an injury and she was sidelined for a while. And that took, it takes a lot as anyone working with these, this caliber of the athletes that we have here on our team. It was tough, right? And she kind of powered through that and came back stronger than ever. Maya is a phenomenal classic skier and always has been. And so to work through that injury and to really find herself where she had hoped to be, I think this year, sadly enough, for a lot of these athletes, this year might have been that big year, that sort of, I think if she had continued on that path, she might have found herself at NCAAs this year. But, she had a huge impact in her ability to just be able to step up and be, and persevere through so much of the years prior with kind of with injuries. She seemed to always have something going on. She was always working on it, and she was always sort of making sure that she could do the things she needed to do to contribute to the team.
Great. Moving on to the men's team in alphabetical order again, starting with Tucker Barber. Mentioned Maya's from across the country. Well, Tucker's from right around the corner from Wilton, Maine, went to Mount Blue High School and also ran cross country here, right? He did a lot at Bates.
He sure did. Yeah. Tucker was a great member of our program. I think one of the things that stands out to me, there's two things, because Tucker is one of those skiers who he's so determined and so competitive, and he just quietly gets the work done, so he led without having to say a thing, he was there all the time. He had skiing in mind, even though he was a standout runner as well. He always had skiing in the back of his mind, so he was making sure that he was doing enough for both sports. And, I'll never forget his race at the Bates Carnival last year. It was just this, this classic race. The weather was horrific, and he just put his head down and had one of the best races, and brought the team with him, and I think they'll all remember that race. I certainly remember that as a coach. I remember Tucker, a standout in that one. So great addition, and we're going to miss him. We're going to miss all of them, right? But we will miss that that work ethic that he brought to the program.
Then how about what impact did Cole Fuller bring across the country again from Bend, Oregon?
Yeah, Cole. One of the things that stands out to me, Cole was one of those skiers who, again, sort of put that work in. And when you least expect it, he was the one that scored for the team, right? So on that day where things seemed to go, off kilter, Cole was the steadfast guy that finished the race, and at 15K started getting stronger. So I will always remember him for that. And as well, he had a lot of fun. He wanted to, he just really, he's a firefighter in the summer. When he started doing that, I think that really changed his, just his idea of fitness and what it meant to him, because it was all interconnected, and, really great addition. We'll miss him.
Tucker Pierce, another Mainer, both Tuckers from Maine. Tucker Pierce, one of the three team captains for Bates Nordic. What made him such a strong leader?
Tucker has this great ability to bring people together. So we had three captains on the team, and sometimes when that happens for us, we sort of have a women's team captain, a men's team captain, and then this person that can sort of bring those groups together. And Tucker had that great ability. He's thoughtful, he listens, and he also is willing to, make those calls for the team to say, we need to do this, you need to do that. And this is why. So I really appreciated that he could bring that balance, and be able to, and be able to bridge the men's and women's teams, because we train together all the time, and we got to get along. So he really helped with that. And from a racing perspective, also made that decision to focus on Nordic skiing. Once he did that, his training really his hours went up, and he had some great finishes. And unfortunately, last year, 2020, he had an injury. I think he was on the way to another one of those years, and then he had to deal with an injury. And he was able to come back a little bit, but I think now what I saw with him as he came in this year, under the circumstances that we were under, I think he brought that element of, joy to the team. We do this because we love it and it's fun, and this is how we're going to do that.
Last but not least, of course, 3-time team captain, Carter Ros. I mean, we've talked about him before, his leadership. He was named team captain as a sophomore. That's fairly rare, right?
It's fairly rare. Yeah, there's a few others that have done that, and they're very memorable. And, I think, Carter has a presence about him that, that people sort of, they kind of flock to. He carries the room, and he is, responsible and respectful, and again, it has the ability to make those decisions, but also, sees, he was always that person for me that, was making sure he could see ahead what we needed to do, and he could predict some things that, this is going to happen, or we need to make sure we're doing this, or, Beck, why don't you look at this as we put these programs or teams together or practices together. And I really respected that vision that he had for the team. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why, he certainly stood out as a sophomore and continued in that role, for 3 years. He was, it's hard to replace someone who's been a captain for 3 years. So I know we'll be able to do. He's also a standout, academically, right? And I think when you have a captain that works really hard athletically and works really hard academically, you just set a standard that is what is expected. And I really appreciate that piece as well that he brought to the program. And he just really wanted to have fun, I mean, in terms of his racing, he brought a great deal. It's just super talent. So I don't know, 7 seniors, we're going to miss them, and I think one of the hardest things about this year is that there was never really a beginning or an end, and our captains, but certainly these seniors had a perspective that really helped the team. They just, we're just going to do the best we can, and we're going to continue to try to get better, because there might, what if we get to race? We want to be ready. And I think it's hard to do. It was hard to do this year, and they all, in their own ways, brought that to the program and really allowed us to bridge this gap between 2020 and 2022. And that's a huge gift to the skiers on the team that will be, racing next year, to all the underclassmen. So I can't thank them enough for that.
All right, Becky Woods, thank you so much for joining us on the Bobcast, saluting the Bates Nordic seniors. Thanks again.
Thanks, Aaron.
For the Bates Alpine skiing program, senior captain Joe Gillis stepped up and led the way for the Bobcats. The 3-time NESCAC all-academic selection looks back on his time as a Bobcat.
Yeah, so Bates really first got on my radar just because I really wanted to go to a school that really prioritized academics. That's what I first looked at. And then going from there, I wanted a place where I felt I could compete at a high level and sustain, that high level of skiing. And so Bates was really just a culmination of both those, where the academics are still obviously outstanding. And then athletically, it gave me a chance to really compete at that level that I wanted to.
And then now as a senior, you've got 2 relatives actually on the team also, Sarah Gillis, your younger sister, and then your younger cousin, Robert Gillis, as well. How cool is that to have the Gillises coming through Bates here?
It's definitely really unique. It was not something I necessarily expected when I first came to Bates, but it's an experience that I don't think many other people get to necessarily share, but I've cherished it over the past couple of years having that. And yeah, it's really just helped me personally, just having them there, able to push me, able to, keep me in line. It's been really fun.
Being a senior captain this year in a season where there weren't any carnivals or anything like that. I know some of the skiers have been able to get some training in elsewhere and everything, but what was it like from your perspective, how, being a leader in a year where there weren't any, intercollegiate competitions, basically?
I would say it's definitely been different in terms of just filling the leadership position and being able to do stuff as a team. I wouldn't say that's been necessarily too different from other years in the past. I think the captain position is usually just somebody who's there guiding underclassmen, making sure they know times of departure, making sure there's a steady hand if they need help, talking about something. And I would say from that perspective, it hasn't been radically different from years past. And, I've really taken a lot away from former captains who helped me get through this or get through my time at Bates. So I would say, though, however, with COVID and everything, it's been unique in the sense that obviously having an intern coach and Kurt Simard, that maybe has been the biggest change that has really impacted us, making our season much more difficult than we probably thought going in. But I can't say enough good things about what Kurt has done for the team this year and just how great athletically everything has been for us, all things considered, going into this year.
Yeah, how have you worked with him in terms of, him coming in, kind of new to the program, you having a few years under your belt and also being a captain? How has that relationship developed?
Yeah, he's an outstanding communicator. He really is good at contacting everybody individually, working with them at an individual level to make sure they're getting what they need. On Hill, he's outstanding, definitely knows what it takes to be a high level college athlete. And yeah, I just cannot say enough good things about Kurt this year. He's really stepped up to the challenge of this COVID-19 year.
Yeah, how often were you able to get out there to Sunday River and train? Same as usual or a little bit less, perhaps?
I would say a little bit less than normal, but I mean, skiing is one of those things where even if you're not necessarily training, you can still go out there and do that. It's something that I look forward to moving on and doing more of now. It's just the ability to go out there and ski. But once we were able to start participating as a team in early March, we were able to get out there a fair amount, a couple days a week, and get those reps that we really were looking for and need for to prepare for next season.
Well, along with skiing, you've been an all academic selection in the NESCAC, the maximum 3 times. So I do know it is a commute to get out to Sunday River. Sometimes you feel like you might be living on that mountain. How have you been able to balance the academics with the time commitment skiing takes?
It's definitely a challenge. I think the people like to say the van ride's pretty quick, but it's definitely a full hour up there and a full hour back. So I think you really got to be committed to your academics. You got to get your work done ahead of time. In some ways, I think that really helps you almost in a way do better just because you're on that such a tight regimented schedule. And I really learned a lot from people who are above me in the program. A lot of other athletes that have been above me were really outstanding students, and they really helped push me to make sure that I was on top of my studying from an early time here at Bates.
Well, take us back to when we did have carnivals in 2018, 2019, and 2020 for the skiing program as well. But what were some memorable carnivals for you? What are some ones that really stand out?
I think without question, especially on the men's side of things, for us, the most memorable carnival last year was just the home carnival here at Bates. I know a big challenge that we kind of put forth last year is we really wanted to knock off one of the top tier programs in one of the carnivals, and in the Bates GS, we were able to unseat UVM for, I believe it was our best finish all year. And just being able to compete with a program like that, something that's obviously they have a lot higher level athletes who are coming in from foreign places, who are on national teams, who are competing, during this COVID year on a national stage. I think we really lived up to the challenge. We like that idea of us being an underdog and being able to go out there and compete with guys like that. That was really a cool moment for us, I think.
Yeah, what people may not realize is Bates does compete at the highest level of collegiate skiing. You're competing against the best of the best. Overall, what's that experience been like throughout the years here?
It's just great. I mean, it keeps getting better and better every year. Just, there's more good people coming in each year who are really pushing everybody, I think, here. But Bates really gives you a chance to compete with the best. And can't say enough good things about it over the past couple of years.
What's been some of the ways you've seen yourself grow as a skier since you first arrived here to now, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, I came in originally as somebody who walked onto the program, so my expectations for myself were not they were not super high, but obviously I was able to. My freshman year, I was not a full-time starter or anything. I did not participate in every single weekend in the carnivals, and then slowly, I progressed and I basically transformed into a full-time starter over the past couple of years. And that was not something I really set forth as an expectation for myself when I first got here, but I was really pleased with myself and my own personal growth that I was able to experience here, and just being able to compete at that level was really a pleasure.
So you weren't really recruited then to the program. You kind of came to Bates and was like, I want to try out for the skiing team. How'd that kind of go for you?
So when I was first got into Bates, actually, it was under a different coach, Rogan Kano, who obviously left. And then I was basically told that if I performed well as a postgraduate, I ended up taking a postgraduate year before college. I might have the opportunity to compete at Bates. Unfortunately, he ended up leaving during that year. So then a new coach transitioned in, Michaela Holland, who was just fantastic. I mean, she was my coach for all my carnivals. And yeah, she gave me an opportunity to compete. She liked the results I obviously had as a post grad. And then I was on a trial run my freshman year. And then from there, things just kind of grew.
Seems like a lot of skiers do take those post-grad years. What value does that what value do you get from it, I guess? And what value do you have you seen other skiers get from it?
I think the skier is really able to gain like a level of maturity that maybe that not some other athletes maybe aren't able to experience until they get to college their first year. Obviously, when you take a post-grad year, a lot of students are living on their own. You're not really enrolled in classes. It's really just you focusing on your sport. And it can be difficult at times. It really puts a lot of pressure on yourself. And coming to college, like once you do get to college, it's almost in a way a lot easier because that pressure is suddenly gone. You have more things to focus on. But I think just being put in those situations and just having to take care of yourself and having to have that maturity to be able to compete week in, week out, I think it's really good for a lot of athletes on the team.
You mentioned the team highlight of beating UVM there at the Bates Carnival. From an individual standpoint, what are some particularly, do you have memorable runs? I mean, they're so quick, right? You're down the hill in such a quick amount of time, but were there any particular carnivals you remember in terms of maybe good or bad in terms of some memorable runs in the slalom or the GS there?
Yeah, probably I would say my most memorable run or maybe weekend as a whole is my sophomore year. We went up to the St. Lawrence Carnival. It was like the season opener that year. And obviously the year before I performed like what I thought was pretty reasonably well for myself, but my expectations were not very high going in. And I was able to come away with, at the time, a career best 19th. And after first run, I was sitting in about 28th, 29th place. And in ski racing, you have what's called the flip 30, where the top 30 guys from the first run flip backwards in order to run for the second run. And so I just remember the nerves kind of being up there in the start before the second run going, oh, wow, I'm really in here with everybody. Like I'm really competing on this run. So I think that was probably my most memorable run I think I ever had.
As a senior net right now, obviously the world is in an odd shape, but what are some thoughts you have on the near future for you after you graduate from Bates here?
Yeah, so next year I'm planning on moving to Boston. I'm going to be attending BC Law as a graduate student. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then I'm just, as a whole, I'm looking forward to taking a step back from skiing, but still being out there, whether it's a resource on the Bates ski team or just being up there on the weekends with some friends. I think the one great thing about skiing is that even though I'm done competing collegiately, like skiing never really ends for you. It's always something that's kind of a part of your life. And not many other athletes get to say that. So I'm really looking forward to continuing my journey with skiing, even though it's going to be outside of Bates.
And you are obviously going to probably be keeping track of how the Bobcats are doing, right? Once they finally get back to carnival competition, I imagine.
I mean, of course, obviously I've got some relatives here that I got to keep an eye on. So
excellent. Well, any other thoughts you wanted to share about your time at Bates on the ski team or perhaps just overall?
I mean, as I said before, I can't say enough good things, how thankful I am to been a part of this team for the past 4 years, and I'm confident going forward that it's going to be in great hands with future leadership coming up. And I'm just so thankful to everyone for everything they've given me.
Joe Gillis, senior captain of the Bates Alpine skiing team. Thanks so much for joining us on the Bobcast. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron. Really appreciate it too.
Interim head coach Kurt Simard has balanced getting to know his seniors while preparing the program for the future. Coach, we just talked to Joe Gillis, senior captain, and you were telling me before we started what a contribution he's made to help you kind of as almost like an assistant coach with the program, even though there wasn't a carnival season. Tell me a little bit more about Joe Gillis and what he's meant.
Yeah. So when I started back in the fall, both the captains, Joe Gillis and Daphne James, were super to bounce thoughts off of, get some insight from. And, Daphne ended up being remote this year, this winter, so to speak, when we came back in February, and Joe was back, and just really helpful in just coordinating our training, communicating, help communicate with the team, ideas on where folks were at. Really with all these seniors, I tried to strike a balance between, this is what we're doing and where are you at, given the fact that, the kind of the floors come out from underneath you here, your senior year. So he was really good with that. And I definitely appreciated that. And, it's 8 seniors total out of, the 2 teams, the men's and the women's teams, 8 out of the total of 20. So it's a significant number of Bobcats here graduating. And I think I have been amazed at each and every one of them. However, I've had to get to know them. They are awesome citizens. They care about Bates College. They care about Bates skiing. And I think they have really set a path for future folks coming in, set the bar at a pretty strong level. And one thing that I've been really impressed with, they care about competition and ski racing. But I think the neat thing is you can tell that they love the sport of skiing. And I think it's going to be a big part of their life moving forward. And that's something that's transcended through, even a few of them that have been back, like a Max Schneider who hasn't been training, but I've seen him a few times just out, skiing on the mountain, and just the passion for it. And I told him, it's hard when something happens like this to keep that high level of what you're chasing and why you're doing it. And so no judgment if this has come along and it's sort of taking the wind out of your sail, so to speak. So it's a great group. It really is a great group of student athletes, and I certainly have appreciated getting to know them.
Yeah, and then on the women's side, there's 3 seniors: Amelia Kaplan, then Griffin Mueller, and Hannah West. And Mueller and West both had big time performances throughout their careers for the Bobcats. Prior to you joining, obviously you haven't got to see them in competition yet, but I know you were able to connect with at least them in some way, somehow, right? Tell me a little bit about how you tried to, connect with these seniors, because you mentioned there's so many variety of ways that, some were remote, some were here. How do you kind of balance that from a coaching perspective?
Yeah. So, those 3, Griffin was coming off of an injury, and she spent a lot of time in Colorado during the break. Hannah was out in the Western United States as well. And Amelia Kaplan was doing quite a bit of training in Vermont and, improving. So they were doing different things in those ways. But again, I think they all just tried to find the silver lining in the whole winter. And I think that as challenging as it all was, I think that it's you have to take the best out of what the opportunity was. And, I can remember having a conversation with Hannah West, and because of ski training and everything else, she hadn't had Thanksgiving with her family in 8 years. So she had Thanksgiving with her family this year. So, there's all kinds of different ways to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. The seniors on the men's side, we mentioned Joe Gillis and what he's contributed. You have Matthew Hannes, Taggart Mueller, Max Schneider, and also Calvin Wilson on the men's side. Some all academic performers there. And then, of course, Taggart Mueller being Griffin Mueller's brother, and Joe Gillis also has some family connections on this team, right? So the legacy continues for some of these Bobcats, I suppose, even after graduation, right? Yes.
Sarah's a junior, and she'll be here next year, which is awesome. She's had a great training stretch here in the last couple months, so there's a lot to look forward to. And I think with this group, I really look forward to. They'll be around, they'll be coming back, and I really look forward to seeing them in a different way, and it's exciting.
Yeah, certainly. And talking to Joe, he said he might take a step back from actual skiing. I think he mentioned he's going to law school after this. Yes. He performed really well in the classroom during his time at Bates, as did a number of Bobcats on this team. So all academic selections that I mentioned. I mean, from a coaching perspective, how impressed were you that, they're able to be all academic despite, having to travel, to Sunday River almost every day, right? During the season.
Yeah. It's really impressive, the discipline, the academic discipline, and everything. And even just in the fall, getting to know some of them. And, at that point it was like, what's your plan for December? What are you doing in early January? And, but then it led to, because they were seniors, it led to the spring. And, many of them had plans they've been working on. They've had some internships, and, they haven't been messing around. They're ready to go after graduation. They got some plans in place, and so it's pretty impressive.
Excellent. What are your thoughts you wanted to share about the senior class for the alpine skiing program this year? As I know it's a weird situation, you coming in new to Bates in a time of no carnivals.
Yeah. Well, it'll be something that will be with me for the rest of my life. He came into a situation and got to know some student athletes in a challenging way, but also in a really cool way. So I feel like I've worked with him a lot more than I really have in some ways, which is a compliment, I should say. It's really good.
Kurt Simard, interim head coach of the alpine skiing program. Thanks so much for joining us on the Bobcast and saluting our alpine skiing seniors. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron.
Next time on the Bates Bobcast, we'll continue our senior salutes, this time with the basketball teams. Hear from the 4 senior men's basketball captains, as well as women's basketball captain, Julia Middlebrook. Next time on the Bates Bobcast.